Hi, good morning, and welcome to the Comics Experience Graphic Novel of the Month Club, the kids version, my favorite version, because kids are the future, for the month of April 2025. And we've got a fantastic book this month from a really fantastic artist. I have followed their career for a really long time, and I love everything that they do, and their new book is no exception. The book is A Song for You and I. Oh, look, shiny. Shiny.
I love
and we're very, very lucky to be joined here by Kay O'Neill. Hello, Kay.
Hi. Thank you
How are
so
you
much
doing?
for having me. And thank you so much for choosing my book for the pick of the month. I'm really honored.
Yeah, no, it's my absolute pleasure. So I always start with the same first question because I think it kind of gets to what we're trying to do here with these interview series. And the question is essentially thus: why comics? Of all of the ways you could be doing art, doing creativity, comics are a solitary job, maybe not a particularly remunerative one for many creators, a lot of hard work. So, what is it about the medium of comics that thrills you and makes it the place that you want to do work?
Well, I think it's almost some of those things that you mention as hardships and what also make it really appealing, which is, it is solitary, which can be really hard, but it also means that you have a lot of like freedom of your vision, compared to a film where you have to have all the moving parts and make sure like it can only come together when everyone's doing their job, but also when you've got the funding and it's so many different things. Whereas with a graphic novel, I guess both the like the hard part and the really fun part is that you kind of get to really fully express your vision very directly. So you're doing the writing, the setting, the like designs, the expression, just getting to, there's so many parts that are really laborious, but getting to draw that one scene that you've been thinking about for years, and you can draw it exactly the way you want. And it's, well, hopefully exactly the way you want if you manage to nail it. But it's just, yeah, striving for that is what really makes me excited. I've always been driven by those moments, those sequences that you couldn't do any other way. You couldn't write them, but you need words, but you don't need that many words.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a pretty special medium. I always love people's answers to this because there's such a range of ways that people approach it. Have you always wanted to do comics? I mean, when you were younger, did you think comics are going to be the thing I'm going to do?
Yeah, I think just intuitively, that's what I was drawn to was like cartoons, starting out with kind of just one or two sort of panels, very simple. And then I guess around when I was 12 or 13, the local library started buying manga. And that was just, after that, never looked back. I was like, oh, this is how I think of stories, how I think of characters and storytelling. And I think it took me quite a while to realize that they are like made by teams, usually with assistants. So it's quite different. But yeah, I think just that style of storytelling specifically is where I got my kind of graphic novel education, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about the New Zealand comic scene and the comics industry. So you were mostly exposed through your libraries, you said. Were they bringing in just a wide range of comics, or was it kind of just a very narrow amount?
No, they've always been really excellent. I think libraries in New Zealand are generally pretty well funded and they have really good selections. And I'd say nowadays they've got a huge range. Like just have graphic novels coming in that I've never even heard of. So it's amazing. And it's like, yeah, I think they're still, I think before I also didn't really understand what graphic novels were. I thought they were all kind of, I guess, like maybe older and very serious,
Yeah,
kind of superhero adjacent. I was never really into the superhero universe
sure.
and those kinds of comics, so I wasn't sure if they were for me. And it was as I got a bit older, I was like, oh, this is kind of like what I could do.
Yeah. Were you going into comic book stores at all when you were younger, or
We as far as I'm not from a very big town in New Zealand, so I don't think, as far as I know, that we had a comic book shop, but we had a couple of bookstores that had comic sections. So yeah, I was going to reading just like, but the libraries were honestly amazing. They'd just buy books in and all the time. You could request them. And then they had for anyone under 18, it was free to hold books. So you'd be holding like 20 volumes of One Piece and just hoping that you get them in the right order, and you're not going to be like waiting for 2 weeks to get the one that you don't have and then spend an entire weekend just speed reading.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because, you know, when I look at your art, I mean, now that you say that manga were some of the earlier ones that you read, I can see the manga influence now that you say it. But I would have never thought of that on my own. You know, that Kay gets, you know, is a big manga fan.
Yeah, I guess it's probably more it's kind of intuitive, right? Like it's just all your influences, all these things that you kind of just absorb because you're drawn to it. I try not to overthink my process, because I've learned that leads to disaster. So I am trying to like work as intuitively as possible and like make decisions where they need to be made, and try and like, I guess, for lots of it, not overthink what I'm doing. It's sort of, otherwise you can kind of just undermine yourself.
Sure.
And like what you actually have to offer. And it's so very easy to think, well, if this was my, you know, I don't know, things that feel like they come easy to you are very easy to undervalue, but it's actually just that's just specifically, that's your kind of concoction. It's what you make.
Oh, that is so true. Did you have formal training in art? Did you go to university to study art or anything like that? Or
no, I studied English and Japanese at university.
Okay.
I didn't study, but I was very drawn to writing and storytelling and language.
When were the first comics that you made?
I guess I was making short comics and like thinking in terms of characters and storytelling up until that point. And actually through university, I was very interested in writing, and like my goal was to become a writer rather than a graphic novelist. And I guess, but that was also the heyday of Tumblr. So it was very easy to sort of make things and put them out there in the world. And like, so I think I started with very, very short comics, maybe just like a few pages, and started to get my feet a little bit at a time.
That makes sense. So you were doing it on Tumblr. Were you also, some people like made little mini comics or zines, things like that, sold them at festivals. Did you do that kind of a thing as well?
No, it was actually quite a long time before I thought to print and try and sell things. But I do remember, I think my first convention was in Sydney, Australia, and it was really fun. I couldn't believe that people could know me from online. And just, yeah, it was, because it's not even like my hometown or anything. So that was really fun. That was just selling a bunch of self-published Princess comics.
Yeah. The first book that came out here in the United States, at least, I'm not sure about there, was Society, right? It was Society.
I think there was an American edition of Princess Ever After.
Oh yeah, you're right. Oh my gosh, you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
So how did that first one come along?
So that was purely my editor, Ari Yarwood, who worked at Only Press, just seeing it online and reaching out just out of nowhere, like, would you like to print it? And I was like, well, it already exists, so might as well.
Wow, that's kind of neat though. Like just getting a call out of the blue from an American publisher. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's been a huge change for the industry, especially for comics artists based in New Zealand, is that you can work with international publishers without having to go to like shows and conventions and things necessarily. Even if you can't network in person, you can network online. So that's a really good development for people here.
Yeah. And with that first book, because you said that you'd already done them on the internet, were there changes? Were there, like, did they just go, we want to print this as it is? Or did they go, we'd love to do this, but we want you to change these 20 pages?
No, I have had very little editorial resistance throughout my career. I'm really, really lucky. I realized that where I've had started with people who were very interested in what I was doing specifically because it was different and it was filling a gap in the market at the time, where at the time there was a very limited amount of sort of queer fairy tale stories. And so, yeah, as it was, like we pretty much could just print it. I think maybe some like art mixes and stuff I might have done, but yeah.
Interesting. Very good. When you did the Tea Dragon books, they're much larger than sort of a traditional comic book. Were these also done like on Tumblr and stuff ahead of time, or were these original things for Oni at that point?
A bit of both, actually. So one thing that was also really great about working with Oni and with Ari was that like they didn't see it as an obstacle that something was online as well as in print, which these days seems like a very like obvious thing. It's like, yes, you build an audience, and even if it's available for free, people will still want to own a physical copy. It's like that's worked really well for lots of people. But I think maybe at the time there was more reluctance about the crossover between webcomics and graphic novels. So yeah, but they were happy to do that. So I was kind of publishing it as a webcomic, but then ultimately, ended up publishing it. So just the first one was available online as well, because I thought like building that readership was really worthwhile.
Yeah. So what was the thinking for doing it sort of that tabloid size, that bigger format? I mean, I have to imagine that's substantially bigger than how the art is on the internet, you know?
Yeah. Well, I guess I was doing it more. I wasn't thinking in terms of like screen. I was thinking in terms of the print, for the finished print, even as the webcomic, basically. So I guess I was really inspired by the kind of European comic size.
Sure.
And especially because I wanted it to be for younger readers, so they can kind of hold it, and the art is really nice and big, as well as the words. So that kind of, I felt like that helped kind of expand the age like range as well, where quite young children can kind of just follow the pictures and stuff. And that's why I went for that style as well, with the more, I guess, kind of going for like a mid-century kind of children's book.
Right. Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it is pretty exciting that this book won the Eisner. Right? Like, did you expect that in a million years, that you're essentially your second book is suddenly?
No, I did not expect that at all. That was amazing.
Did you come out to Comic-Con and go to the ceremony and all that, or?
No, not that year. I have been, but not that year. I wasn't there. So my editor accepted it.
Yeah. Oh, very nice. What's your working process? Do you work physically? Do you work digitally?
Those ones were all digital. So, I mean, all my books so far have been all digital. So I'd love to lean the process more towards traditional, towards the future. But yeah, for most of my projects, especially the ones that I did, like all the Tea Dragons and Aquacorn Cove and things, they were on quite a deadline. So that the digital process helps a lot with that. Whereas now I'm kind of taking my time a bit more and trying to explore more, like see how far I can push the traditional before I'm finally like, okay, I quit. I'm putting on my iPad now. Yeah.
So is there, when you envision a book in this format, but you're drawing it digitally, how big is your drawing digitally? Is it kind of that size, or is it more like that size?
It's basically the size of the iPad screen. So the iPad is about the size of the book. I've got the big one. I'm waiting for them to build a bigger one. If they ever bring one out that's like 15 inches, I'll be the first person to buy it. But that's like, that way you can kind of see it mostly to size, and then you can sort of zoom and move around and things. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's not too bad. I don't find it too kind of like confronting going between the two. But it is always like very, it's like it really feels different when you actually get to see it printed out when you've been working on it digitally.
No, I bet. Then, and I'm sure that the colors look a little different than what you're used to on your screen, and Yeah.
Yeah, I've been really, really pleased with the Mothkeeper colors. When I opened that book, I just lost my mind because I was a bit nervous using so many blues and it's kind of dusky kind of colors, but that one just came out really, really wonderful. So I'm really excited to open that up.
Yeah, yeah. You moved from Oni to one of Random House's imprints. It's Random House Graphic. What brought that about?
I guess I finished my stuff, my Tea Dragons sort of series that I'd had. So, and a friend of mine suggested an agent that she loves working with, Linda Camacho, who's amazing. So, yeah, I guess it was just like because it was an opportunity to start a whole new series, I guess. So, yeah, we decided to just look around.
Yeah. Is your agent in New Zealand or like in America?
No, in New York.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
So that's really helpful too, because it just cuts I mean, first of all, artists, anything to do with the business side is like, but specifically being able to be in New York where there's so much publishing happening, that's really amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that's great stuff. So let's maybe talk a little specifically about A Song for You and I. Where did the idea for this book? I love the shiny. I love getting it on the camera where it's there. You go. Where did the idea for the book come from?
Well, I think I kind of had it as it almost started with just the landscape because I was kind of thinking like, what do I really love drawing? Like, what can I draw for another whole book? And kind of tried that approach for sort of brainstorming and drafting and things. So the idea of the landscape being such a huge part of the book and having the characters at times be quite small and kind of like changing their perspective because the character Rowan goes from sort of soaring above it to having to walk on foot, and it's like a different perspective of the world and sort of the role that Rowan wants to take on as being a ranger. It's like you see it differently when you're actually on the ground with the people who live there as well as the different animals and the things. So yeah, I guess that was like something I really wanted to explore. And like a lot of the scenery is from New Zealand. It's from photos that I've taken or just places that I know really, really well. Yeah, I think that's something that I always think of as like growing up in New Zealand, the landscape is just so much part of you.
Not bad.
So it kind of always comes through, but especially in this book.
Yeah. Did you so you were talking about how you wanted to use landscapes and I see that very much. When did the characters come into it? If you see
right away. They're just mosey, and so for a long time it was going to be a very different book of like a lot of boats. Okay. And I was like, actually, I don't know if I really want to draw this many boats. So I kind of was thinking other like, what do I like? Horses are really fun to draw, even though they're kind of crazy animals, but like, things like that. It was quite an organic process. And then just drawing the characters a lot, getting to know them. I liked the contrast. And yeah, I think they both are able to kind of express different sides of myself. So it's that kind of, I think it's the first time I've done a book where I've had like two very equal kind of protagonists. I guess Greta and Minette, but I feel like it often shifts quite strongly between them, whereas they're both on this journey like together basically.
Yeah. Did you have the love story part of it already baked into the concept, or?
No, I guess it just kind of happened naturally because the characters just have like it's sort of the characters see each other so clearly, and that's a kind of love of just like that just sort of occurred through the writing, that it just felt natural to end it that way. But at the same time, I wanted it to feel like it doesn't have to actually be a romantic love. It could be still platonic. It could be just a friendship, but it's like a lifelong, and it's just an understanding and being sort of almost like the first person to understand you better than you understand yourself is kind of what it feels like to be loved.
Yeah. Yeah, no, very much so. Did you how do you sort of build your stories? Do you start with a script, or do you just start sketching, or because I've talked to many different cartoonists, and everybody kind of approaches that part of it very differently.
Yeah. And I think it would also depend a lot on how their publisher wants to work, because some will be much more like, yep, like just, you know, you need to be doing all the art at the same time, or kind of like they might have more hands-on development. I tend to kind of go away and just do loads of drawing, lots of thinking, and a bit of writing at the same time. But I kind of do tend to progress with quite defined steps. So start with the outline, and then the script, and then thumbnails. I kind of try, like, I think I used to get a bit ahead of myself. And so it would almost sometimes feel like by the time I actually got to draw things, I'd already drawn them 50 times. So I'm trying to get to a point in my process, and that's actually true for writing too. You don't want to feel like you've already written the scene in your head 50 times, because even if it's a moment that you've really looked forward to, or that was the kind of catalyst for starting this book, it's like for me, I need this like freshness of like coming to it and not exactly knowing what it will be, like not exactly knowing how it has to go, so that it could still surprise me as I'm making it. I think if you can, as I've learned for myself, if I can kind of keep that sense of surprise and newness throughout the process, I end up like being able to stay connected with it a lot more.
Yeah.
And as you were saying before, the kind of the labor and stuff, for me, that comes in when I've already set too much down and I've set it in stone, and it's now almost just the sheer labor of following through on what I've already, yeah.
So what kind of an outline are you, like, how detailed is this outline? It sounds like it's probably not, so that it keeps you kind of fresh.
Yeah, it can kind of depend on the book a little bit. I think it's got to make sure I feel confident in the story. Like I need to feel like, yep, there's enough structure to what's like to feel satisfying, and to bring the characters along onto a journey, and to bring the reader along. But it might be that the details are a bit muzzy, where it's like, and then this happens, but I'm not clear about how that happens or something. And that's for me to find out later.
Yeah.
And especially like for conversations and stuff, it's like nice to be able to, like, I love writing conversations, and yeah.
Are you writing those conversations in the moment as you're laying out your pages, or are you sort of pre-writing some of it in the outline, if you see what I mean?
I think there'll be some lines that go from the outline to the finished product. I'll be there the whole way, where it's like the way I thought of it is just the way it needs to be at the end. But a lot of I kind of do have that writing background. So I do like a nice script, like a really solid script. But thankfully I've always worked with editors who don't require too much sort of detail. They don't need it panel by panel. They just can have it like a script, like quite fluid. And then the next step can be for me actually figuring out, okay, how are we going to break this up into panels, pages, etc. So that gives me something new at each step.
Yeah. Was there a difference in working with Oni, which was, particularly at the time these books came out, a very small company? I don't think they ever had more than a dozen employees at the most. Probably not even that many. And Random House, which is a giant multinational corporation, which I imagine is probably a little more structured.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is, but I don't think I've ever felt that too much, because just, everywhere I go, I work with really passionate people. I think people who love graphic novels, love comics, want to push what can be done with them, want to and also are interested in what authors can specifically bring. So I guess, so far it feels like I'm making the same work. I feel like I'm speaking in the same voice and getting to say the same things. So for me, that's the most important part.
Yeah. So there wasn't anything in particular that you had to change or sort of reevaluate about your process between the two?
No, the process stayed pretty much the same. That was quite nice. Yeah.
Nice.
And it's always been great to have editors who are keen to give feedback and give kind of I guess I've always felt like if there's something I don't know, I can ask, but then other than that, I'm pretty much left to my own devices, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky too. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's, we were talking about the solitude of working in comics, and it's one of its strengths. And I I find overall that most of the good editors in comics respect that, right? Like they respect the way you want to work, and they don't, for the most part, try to pigeonhole you into something else, which is,
I think
a
so.
fantastic thing editorially to happen.
Yeah, that's always been my experience, very, very fortunately. And yeah, I think it's always like a mixture of like, okay, I mean, you've got to think about who the audience is, so it's clear at least. So that's, even if it's like pushing what it could do, it's like at least it's clear for people who are coming into the store or into the library to know that this is for me, this is what I want to read, or something like that. But other than that, in terms of the actual content, I think there's plenty of freedom.
Yeah, very much so. A Song for You and I is 216 pages. I think it's the longest thing you've done. I feel like this was 30 or 40 pages longer than Mothkeeper. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Was it challenging for you?
It might feel longer because it's got lots of. Oh no, sorry. I think it's like starting to get a little bit stuttery, but I think Mothkeeper is slightly longer, but they're very, very similar.
Well, I guess my question, sort of more broadly, then would be going from the Tea Dragons, which are, I don't know, what are these, 60, 70 pages, maybe something along. Do we have page numbers? Nope. Yep. Yeah, we do. Yeah, so like 60, 70 pages to doing 200-page books. Was that at all a challenge for you?
Yeah, it was. I had longer to do them, so that helped partly, but also that was also the reason for the sort of change in the art style as well, going from the lineless style, which was pretty labor intensive, to the line art, which allows you to have a lot more shortcuts through things like Clip Studio. There's really good tools to help you color very, very quickly, and just the line art itself was a lot more practical. So yeah, it was mainly the art style that had to change. I couldn't have done the other art style with the longer books.
So that's actually interesting. When you for the Tea Dragons, were you penciling the book first, or are you building it all in color? I'm not even sure.
I definitely had pencils, but it kind of skips the inks because you don't need to outline anything.
That makes sense. What makes
I think
this, yeah, it's a little stuttery here. Our internet, I think, is pretty okay. I'm not sure if it's on yours, or maybe it's just the transatlantic.
It's a little bouncy, but that's okay. You can get through it.
Yeah. As long as at the end you just keep the.
It might be. It could be on my end. Unfortunately, I don't have Ethernet, but.
It's all good. It's all good. Just like I said, at the end of the show, don't log off until it tells you that it's all uploaded, and then the final product won't show it at all. It's the neat thing about this technology. So what I was going to ask was, I was just going to be something about
okay, awesome.
The lineless style. You mentioned that this was a lot more labor intensive. Can you kind of explain why it's more labor intensive?
I think it took a lot more planning, because you've got to go from back to front in terms of your layers. You've got to have a lot of layer organization, which is not really my strong point, but yeah, it just took more thinking. It felt more like, and I didn't want to just paint straight on, because making changes after that point would be really difficult. And of course, it always needs to have the option for the editor to come by and say, like, "Oh, this doesn't actually read that clearly," or you've forgotten this detail, or this is the lighting is wrong. It's like, if you just paint straight on, you might risk kind of making it difficult to make those changes later. So I was trying to keep it with lots of layers so that it could be altered or edited as needed. But yeah, so that, I think that just the management of it kind of made it feel more intensive for me, whereas line art is very just like it's fluid.
Yeah, I agree with that. Are your editors asking for a lot of changes, like in terms of color or the things you were talking about? Oh, there's not enough light on this page, or things like that. Is that a common thing, or was that not happening very often?
I mean, honestly, no. Not really. It's usually me who wants to make the changes and fuss around and make edits and stuff. So yeah, it wasn't a huge problem. It was also just, but you just need to know, and it would be quite devastating if you'd done a bunch of work and it had to be like you couldn't change it or something. So it was nice having that freedom to pages they've already done and just make little changes along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The traditional way of doing line art makes it is a lot smoother. You use a lot of silence in Song for You and I. There's a lot of kind of quiet sequences, or there's 2 or 3 or 4 pages where it's just storytelling purely through imagery without any words. Was that sort of the front of your brain conscious decision, or was that just what the work called for?
I guess it's sort of more like what, I guess the more I make graphic novels, the shorter the scripts get, where I'm starting to like just write less and less of the dialogue and trying to show as much as possible. So I guess there were a lot of themes that I felt were more easily like reflected in those quiet moments with this book. And I guess it also feels like films, like a lot of my favorite films have a lot of silence in them, a lot of sort of just scenes where you're kind of just watching the scenery or watching the characters, some kind of detail. So that kind of cinematic feeling is also something that I really try and strive for as well. Sorry, I'm just petting a cat. That's why my hands move. It's
fine. I'm not going to judge you either way.
Sorry, I just realized I was like petting something out of frame that no one can see.
I'm sure the cat appreciates it. All right. So when you're starting to do the book, particularly when you're doing it in a more traditional style, where you've got an actual pencil line and then ink, do you do the book in sort of chapters, or do you go through and do all the pencil first? And hello kitty. What's the kitty's name? Oh, we've got some lag here, huh?
This is Lara.
Hello Lara. Very nice. So anyway, yeah, so my question was, are you laying out the whole book at once, or are you sort of doing it in chunks where he's like, all right, I'm going to do 20 pages and then I'm going to color it? Like, what's your process there?
So that's actually a big change between the 2 books. So with the other style, I would go from pencil to finished page and then on to the next page, basically. And so it was kind of going through all that process, page by page. So it was good because it kind of made it fun to work on, I guess, day by day. But at the same time, it sort of sometimes let me feel like, oh, it's got quite a shift between the start or the end of the book. Whereas I think now when I do pencils, I do the whole book of pencils, then I do the whole book of inks, and I do the whole book of colors. And it does help quite a lot with keeping consistency.
That makes a lot of sense. When you were doing a page at a time, was that a function from you coming from webcomics, where I assume in most cases you're doing your page of art and then you're uploading it to the web, right?
Yeah. That's. I think that was kind of how I was wired to do it. It was partly also because there's not that many intermediate stages after the pencil to the finished artwork. You kind of are working on it, like you're working on the final basically the whole time. So I think it was a mixture of both. Yeah, and especially because with Tea Dragons, like I was publishing it as a webcomic page by page at some point. So yeah, definitely.
That makes a lot of sense. The color palette, because you've always had a very strong color sense. The color palette in A Song of You and I is much more natural. Natural might be the wrong word, but I think it reflects the world of the book. Was it a change for you to think about things in that way, or do you not think about it in that way at all? I've possibly like putting words in your mouth here.
Oh no, it was definitely a choice to do it that way, where I think like each book I'm trying to think what the color palette will be, what will suit it. So Mothkeeper had a lot of it was kind of more of a mysterious or like a fantastical setting. So having the unrealistic kind of like pink and purple and blues made more sense, where it's trying to create this sense of like quite a strange world. Whereas this one, it's, I wanted it to have that feeling that like a real landscape does, where it can be quite sublime or make you feel very small, or, just the sense of distance and stuff. So those kinds of things I was trying to do. I wanted to show a more like realistic palette. And I was also quite inspired by Japanese woodblock prints, because they do a lot with gradient and flat color, but still create that kind of sense of atmosphere and depth. So that was a very big inspiration.
Yeah. No, it's quite beautiful. I love your style very much.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about your lettering. You're obviously using a font here.
Yeah.
Is it a font that's based on your handwriting, or is it just a more commercial font?
Oh no, it's actually my partner's handwriting.
Oh, nice.
She made a really nice font, so I was like, "Can I just use it?" And she's like, "Yeah, there's no copyrights on it. It's all good to go." Yeah, it works pretty well actually. It was just with one of those free online font makers. Yeah, I'd love to hand letter in the future, but at the moment, I think it adds so much. Like I really, really love it, but for me, it will be such a huge skill to learn that it's probably not worth the time investment at the moment, but I'd love to be able to do it in the future.
Sure. There's at least 2 or 3 places in here where it looks like you're hand lettering sort of the onomatopoeia, a whoosh, or like a little interstitial word. Yeah.
I love when those are hand lettered, because you can kind of give the feeling of the word. So
yeah,
definitely the sound effects and stuff will always be hand lettered.
Yeah. So when you're lettering your comics, your balloons are rather large relative to the word. You've got a lot of white space around it. I'm assuming that's a intentional thing. Are you laying out your balloons in the artwork before you started putting in the font, or do you size your balloon around the font?
I actually put the font in first. The lettering is the first thing to go into the page, because I've done too many times where I've done a whole page and then realized there was not enough room for the lettering. I don't really like lettering to feel cramped. I remember when I was younger, I found anything that was too cramped. Even Tintin, to be honest, I never read, because I was just like, this is so dense, it's so tiny, and like it was just like, and I think that's one of the things I really loved about manga, where they have quite floating text and with like a lot of generous space, and I found that much easier for me to read. So I think that's just naturally what I'm drawn to. So yeah, I put in the text first. As soon as I begin the true pencils, going from thumbnail to pencils, I'll put the text in.
Yeah, very nice. I don't know what else I was going to ask about lettering. I think that kind of covers it. When so let's talk about sort of the step between your thumbnails and your pencils. You've got some stuff here at the back of sketch material. Is this what your thumbs kind of look like? Like how big do you thumb? Actually might be the first question.
Well, I actually thumb very small. Very, very, very small. I think for me, the smaller the better, as long as my editor can still read it. And then I'll just try and scan it quite big so that it can have the text added. But they'll be very blobby, sketchy looking thumbnails. For me, if I have too much room, I'll start thinking of it like a page. Like I'll start trying to actually draw it rather than just thinking about the sort of space and the shapes. So I have a very small notebook for when I do thumbnails to keep it.
So you thumb on paper and then you scan it.
Yeah. That's the one thing I always do. Yeah, nice. Definitely, because it just helps me. And I honestly, I'm a very slow. It's not that I'm a slow thumbnail, but if I can get into the zone, I might do 6 to 8 pages, and I find that so exhausting that I usually don't do any more than that in a day, even though that's actually quite a slow pace, because I'm trying to think at that point, like, because I mean, it's not just me, anyone, but it's like when you're thumbnailing, you've got so many options. It's like unlimited ways you could lay this book out. So it doesn't have to be rigidly, once you've done this is this is it for real. But yeah, it's just trying to find at all times just the right solution without overthinking it, so that you have something really that feels really awkward.
Yeah. The thing I always kind of find interesting about the creative process is, when you're looking at the blank page and you're summoning something out of nothingness. It's always fascinating to me, like how that works creatively. Some creators tell me that for them the thumbnails are, as you say, more about sort of building the page, and other people are like, oh, for me it's purely about gesture. Like I want to kind of capture the character, and I'll worry about the plot stuff later. Where do you think you fall on that kind of range?
I think I'm probably a bit of both, because I definitely end up with gestures in my thumbnails that I never get again, and I never quite capture the rest of it. And unfortunately, I think everyone gets that from time to time. So that is why I try to keep them fairly simple, because that can happen too easily. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, you definitely have to have that gesture and movement and things and emotion that you can then come back to and try and I guess more like refine, so that it's at each step you're kind of adding detail but taking away detail, and then obviously putting in like backgrounds and stuff. So yeah, I think I try to be pretty structured. Like my main crime is not leaving enough room for text bubbles in the thumbnails, which is why I put them in straight away when I get to the next step. So yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So you say you can thumb, if you're doing well, 6 to 8 pages a day, which actually I think that's a really good rate. I would say the average that I hear from people is more like 3 or 4. For what that's worth. How about when you get to the pencil and then the ink stages? What's your production like then?
Well, that I guess that depends a lot more on the detail of the pages and the kind of background. And I guess over the years, I've gotten better at choosing subjects that I can draw easily without having to do too much. Because I'm not a technical drawer. I don't really. I've never really draw a car. Never. No, they're all riding horses. There's no cars in this world. You'll never see a car in my books because, well, no, there is an alcohol code, but I think the organic forms for me come much more easily. So I think as long as a page has lots of those, usually it's pretty smooth. But I do get held up quite a lot with pages with buildings, But people ask, oh, how do you draw hands? How do you draw horses? I'm like, don't worry about those. Those are fine. I don't mind any of that. It's just it's just like a straight line. What's a straight line? I don't know.
It's so funny because I would say, again, most people would probably say, oh gosh, trying to draw horses, that's really hard, And yeah, you've got, particularly with the Pegasus, where it's not just the body language of the horse, but also the wings almost become their own character, right?
Yeah, well, also requiring a lot of composition decisions because you've got quite a weird shaped thing that has to be in frame. So yeah, as soon as you introduce a horse as a main character, you've got a lot of extra thinking to do about where everyone's heads are going to be, who's riding, who's on the ground. But I found that really, really fun, and I really love drawing horses, and it was one of those things that felt really organic. I just did loads and loads of practice in the run up, and then just kind of kept running, and then now I've forgotten already. So
yeah,
we know more horses, but it was really, really fun. And the wings are I based off a crane because I felt like that those wings had the kind of weight and the length that would seem like they could lift a horse, even though they definitely couldn't. But yeah, so that was really fun. And I was also thinking a lot about her expression because I wanted her to be expressive, but not to be a cartoon horse. She has her own animal intelligence, and she is an animal. She's a big part of it is Rowan sort of misunderstanding her and kind of sort of almost taking for granted that the kind of understanding and bond that they have. So yeah, I wanted to make sure her expressions always felt somewhere between, like, you can read a human expression in there, but it's not anthropomorphizing her too much.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, kind of the nature of cartooning, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What what was the what was the thinking behind making it a Pegasus as opposed to just a horse? Was that from the beginning, or did that come as you started developing the idea?
No, one of the first drawings I did that I was like, oh, this is kind of what I want to do, is like just a top down, very simple. I think it's in the back of the book. It's like the Pegasus above a kind of patchwork
Yeah.
sets of fields. That was like the second image I drew that was like for this project. So I think from the start I just felt like that will be so much fun to draw. I think kids will really enjoy it. Like, it's raising horses, and flying horses are really popular because it's fun to imagine, and especially having that like bond with an animal is something also that's quite, like, you kind of fantasize when you're young about having this sort of, connection with an animal.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked is because one of the pages of the sketchbook, and you title it, "To be honest, I don't really understand. I still don't really understand how horses work." And it's, they're all horses without wings. They're straight horses. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I just had. Unfortunately, there are no actual flying horses that I could use for reference. If there were, that would have actually made my life a lot easier. But so I just had to use regular ones. So I was just drawing them heaps, and I still don't understand how they work. Like, it blew my mind when I found out that the hoof is a toe. It's just one toe that they're always standing on, and then it's the bit that you think is like the knee is really the ankle. They're kind of crazy. So I do really like them, but I still don't really anatomically know them.
Did you? Are there horses native in New Zealand? There has to be, right?
Not native. No. New Zealand only has native birds and bats, and then frogs and stuff. So it's like, yeah, we don't actually have any native mammals, but do have some reptiles.
Interesting.
Yeah.
One thing I did not know. I learned a new thing. I love that. I love learning new things.
Yeah, but there's plenty of horses here now, but I didn't actually use real horses. I mainly used photographs. I think it's always great to be able to use things in front of you, but I'm also just like, it's to do what you have to do.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to find references online and stuff. So it can be a mixture of like photos and real. Yeah, but I didn't use any direct photo references in the books because I wasn't sure how that would work. But I was like, okay, I'll just go off the dome for these.
Yeah. No, it's one of the things, we were talking earlier, like pre-interview, about how comics have changed, and the fact that people can now use the internet to do research and things like that, like, makes such a world of difference. When I talk to artists who have been, like, drawing for 40 years, they'll tell you about how they painstakingly assembled books of references of cars and horses and things like that, so that they would, be able to, like, refer to it some later day and go, oh, that's what that looks like,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's still a really valuable process to do it with traditional media, even if it just for the fact that it will force you to look somewhere different. I think it can be, obviously everything on the internet is just served by algorithms now. So it's like, if you're not consciously browsing for things, it's sort of just giving you something completely sort of, almost like mindlessly. It's like, I think having that actual conscious connection to the process is really important, which you can totally do online. It's just taking that extra step to make sure it's not just simply things that are like the first thing that you see, and more like digging deep into like old blogs, old websites, all that kind of stuff. I really, really enjoy, like old like handicraft websites, or someone that has a really amazing website where they just documented a whole bunch of like folk clothing from around the world and things like that. So it's and when you find that, it's like they've got their descriptions, it's like obviously their passion and things. So I think that kind of thing is really amazing.
Yeah, that's really neat. That is really neat. How much time do you spend thinking about things like the page turn, if you do at all?
Oh, I definitely do. I do my thumbnails and little
You
bits
choose.
too. So I am thinking of the spreads and stuff. So yeah, I think that's a big part of manga as well. It's very like the page turn, the spreads, the drama. So I think yeah, I definitely do think about it. But again, trying not to overthink too much. It's sort of like a lot of the time I do try to work as instinctively as I can.
Yeah, it's just such a unique thing for comics, right? Like if you're doing a movie or you're writing a book, you don't worry about like what happens when you turn the page. That's just not
Yeah.
something that enters into your mind ever. I mean, I guess, maybe if you're writing poetry and you've got the lines working in a certain way, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Do you think that you might revisit this world? Or do you think that you got it out of your system, as it were?
I think it's out of my system. I think in the like looking ahead to unnamed, undecided future projects, I would love to work on like a series because I think actually building some lore, building characters and stuff over a longer period of time is what I'd probably want to do next because I feel like I've done quite a few standalones. I've been able to explore different settings, different characters, and different themes with all of them. But I think there's something really special that you get when you actually get to stick with characters for multiple volumes. So I think in the future that's something I'd really like to do.
Yeah. Have you already started working on your next book?
Yes, I have. Yeah,
How far into it are you?
I'm pretty behind. I was supposed to hand in the outline last March, and I just handed it in this March. So it's taken a lot of time to think about, and it was really I really appreciated my editor letting me have time off, basically a year of kind of actually just thinking and like developing a few different ideas, coming up with the one that I wanted to do. So yeah, but now the ball's rolling and it's going really well, and I'm really pleased that I had some extra time to kind of really hone in on what I wanted to be able to say or like to draw. Yeah.
Nice, very nice. I would ask you for hints, but I'm not going to do that because that would be rude. Are we? So how far off is it at this point? Then your next book? Is it going to be another year or two, or less than that? Do you think?
I don't know. I'm not sure. The original like I had because I signed for 3 books with Random House. The first 2 are delivered. So the third one had release dates. Definitely not those. I don't know when it will be instead. But the whole team is very patient and letting me take my time. So yeah, I really appreciate that. So it'll be. I mean, I've only just started writing, so that's at least a year of production. Then there's usually a year of pre-production. So it could be a minute. And then actually having to slot it into the catalog and stuff. So yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait. I mean, I love your stuff. So and Mothkeeper and Song for You and I came out really kind of back to back. I mean, I think there was just a year between the two of them, maybe a little more, but
yeah, I can't really remember. They had slightly different times of year. I think they came out, but yeah. Remember?
Is that does that make you as a creator like want to create more when you see the thing come out, or are you like, that one's done, I need a break now?
I think it's a bit of both. It's hard to say because you feel like you need to decompress, but at the same time, you're like, well, this is what I love to do. This is the only thing that I want to do for the rest of my life. So I kind of just got to keep doing it. I go a bit crazy when I'm not working, and then sometimes I go crazy because I'm working too much. So hitting the balance is the like difficult part. But I feel like just in the last year, having some extra time has really helped me kind of adjust. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, you should absolutely take all the time you need to make good work. That is excellent. All right, well, I think I'm gonna go to the last question then at that point, because I've asked you most of the stuff I want to ask you. Actually, how about this for one more, just as a flyer to see if it works? Is there anything that you would like to be asked about your work that you haven't been asked about your work?
Probably not. I mean, I I can't think of anything.
It's all good. I wasn't trying to put you off.
No, no, it's like I really love like chats, especially when they're really nice and casual like this one. It's like so fun because most of the time I'm always just like in, hermit mode, just drawing and drawing. But at the same time, I'm kind of like as much as possible, I'm like happy just letting the work speak for itself. So I can also just be like, yeah, it's like a mix. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think the work does speak for itself. Again, you are quite good, and I quite love your storytelling and your characters and your world building, and I really do hope that you are able to find a series that will work for you and the way that you work, because I would love to see what you can build in a bigger space.
Yeah.
I kind of can't wait to see that, actually, because I think it could be quite fascinating.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. Thank you.
Yeah. No, you're quite a talent, Kay. You're quite a talent. So my last question is kind of this, and it's like the first question, I ask this of pretty much everyone. This is a series of interviews, as we've discussed. Not only do we have this kids club, we also have an adult graphic novel club that I've been doing for 10 years. So we're at something like 250 artist interviews. And there's a lot of people who watch these interviews who want to make comics themselves. And one of the things I hear quite commonly is, I really want to do comics and I've got an idea, but, I don't know if it's good enough. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I have the patience to see it through, yada, 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 right? Like, people come up with excuses why they don't want to do it. But if you were to give a piece of advice to a creator about how to make comics or why to make comics or when to make comics, what might it be? And it could be literally anything. It could be a physical thing. It could be an emotional thing. It could be a spiritual thing even. But what would be your advice to a creator who isn't sure?
I guess for me, I would say start small, because I think making something will, even something short, actually seeing it through to completion will teach you so much about the process, about yourself, about what you want from it, whether it's what you want. So even if you my first comic that went viral, as they say, was about, I think, 9 pages. And that honestly kicked out of my career, just being seen more. And that was just putting it online. So I think if you have any interest at all, just start as small as you can, and then you could print it into a zine, you could put it online, you can do whatever with it, you could just put it on social media, things like that. I think are a really good first step to sort of explore and just get a feel for it, because it can feel quite different going from reading to actually making them. There are things that you might think seem easy, but then they're actually hard, or some things that you thought were really challenging, but actually they come to you much more easily than you expect. So I think just doing something and putting it out there is you've got to take the first steps.
Very much so. I very much agree. This has been fun. I hope you've been having fun with this conversation.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're just as lovely as I expected you to be from your work. I kind of hoping. You never know. Sometimes people are like their artwork, and other times they're not. And I appreciate that you are this kind of bubbly, happy person.
On the page. I put on the page. It's all me.
Yeah, I love it. If you would give me a minute or two here to do a couple of sort of backstage stuff, and then I'll come back and we'll wrap up and talk to you for a last bit. Hey, you there sitting at home. How you doing? Is everything going okay? I hope everything's going okay with you. I really do. If you're sitting at home and you want something to read and you're not sure what it is, can I recommend A Song for You and I? Take the light on. There it goes. A Song for You and I. It is a wonderful book. It is filled with heart. It's got flying horses. I mean, what else do you really want? You're gonna really, really like this. I expect you may already know about this, because Kay has had a lot of books over the years that have been really terrific. but I strongly recommend this. So you can get it from us, the URL pop up here, or, get it from your library. Like Kay said, the libraries are one of the greatest sources of things in the world. Everybody should get stuff from the library as much as they can. I want to tell you that next month, our interview is with Jose Pimenta. I probably mangled that name, by the way. And the book is Halfway to Somewhere. This is quite a good book, and I'm really looking forward to talking to him next month. And so look for that interview next month. Our next adult graphic novel club, I didn't bring a copy with me because I'm goofy. It's Paranoid Gardens by Gerard Way and Chris Weston. And we are joined by Chris Weston, who's the artist, who has got quite a fantastic, lovely style. So look for those interviews coming up as the next two. I also would like to make a couple of thank yous for the club in general. I want to thank Jordan, my producer, who does a bunch of stuff that you don't see, but we could not do these clubs without him, connecting things. I want to thank Ben for running the show today and moving the camera around and making sure that everything works nice. I want to thank my staff. I've got the greatest staff a comic book shop could have, Kat and Katie and Chrissy and Max, without whom I would certainly not be able to take time to talk to creators, which I love doing. And yeah. I want to thank all the people who watch these videos. If this is your first one, you can subscribe, etc. You know how to do that stuff. But please do. I want to thank all the members of the club, because if it wasn't for you, then we couldn't be doing this. And, being able to get you books every month and talk to the creators is, I think, a really wonderful thing. And so it happens from membership. Please join. And finally, last but not least, and really not least, I want to thank creators like Kay here. Kay, I could not do what I do. I am in a store full of comic books. I've been doing this for 36 years. I could not do it literally without people like you taking the things that are inside of your head and putting them on paper. I appreciate what you do so much, and I thank you for it in the most profound way, because otherwise I would be in a store full of blank pages, which would really not be fun.
Thank you. I mean, we also couldn't do what we do without people like you who are genuinely passionate about books and stories. It makes, it's such a pleasure. It's an honor to have spaces for our work. So thank you very, very much for having me. It was lovely.
It is my absolute pleasure. I've enjoyed talking with you, and I cannot wait to see what the future brings for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, then that's about that. We're going to wrap it up. We're going to say goodbye.